The structure of the lattice is where everything begins. To understand this idea, picture the space around you, not as empty or meaningless, but as something alive, powerful, and teeming with information. It's easy to see space as a void because our senses are not trained to decode its true nature. But this space, in every single point, contains the entire history, essence, and structure of the universe. That's right. Every tiny spot around you is not just there. It holds everything. To simplify it even more, imagine holding a small fragment of a mirror. If you position that piece correctly, it can reflect an entire mountain, a tree, or the sky. The mirror doesn't contain those things. It simply reveals their reflection. In a similar way, space, or what this theory calls a lattice, reflects the totality of all information in the universe in every single one of its points. This means that what we perceive as separate, this table, that tree, your own hand, are not truly isolated but interconnected distortions of the same underlying fabric. What makes the lattice fascinating is that it doesn't just exist in a straight line. It isn't flat or limited by the dimensions we usually recognize, like height, width, and depth. Instead, the lattice extends into infinite dimensions we can't directly see, but which science and spirituality alike have tried to describe. Each dimension is a new layer of complexity and depth, allowing the lattice to vibrate and carry information at unimaginable levels. If you're thinking about music, you're not far off. Just as a single guitar string can play a vast range of notes depending on how it vibrates, the lattice holds endless patterns of energy and information based on its capacity to vibrate at infinite frequencies. The lattice itself is not chaotic or random. It is ordered, structured, and profoundly connected. When nothing disturbs it, it is perfectly coherent, like a still lake reflecting the sky with flawless clarity. In this state, there are no objects, no divisions, and no separations. Everything is one. But when something interacts with it, a particle, a thought, an emotion, ripples spread across the lattice, like stones hitting the surface of the water. These ripples are what we call distortions. They form everything we know as physical reality: stars, rocks, plants, and even the very bodies we inhabit. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Because the lattice exists everywhere and includes everything, any change to one of its parts affects the whole. A small ripple in one corner of the lattice doesn't remain isolated. It touches every other point. This principle of total interconnectedness is both poetic and powerful. It's why everything we do, every thought we think, and every emotion we feel has a consequence not just for ourselves, but for the reality around us. The lattice, in its purest form, is timeless and boundless. However, when it distorts itself to create matter, objects, and energy, it starts to operate within different time scales. For example, the ripple caused by a single thought might disappear quickly, like the flame of a match. Meanwhile, the distortion that forms a mountain or a planet may last millions of years. The same underlying structure creates both, but the difference is in the duration and recurrence of the distortions. What makes all of this even more profound is the realization that our brains are part of this lattice. They aren't separate. They are deeply connected to it. Our neurons act as receivers, decoding the lattice's energy and transforming it into what we perceive as sights, sounds, and physical sensations. The brain doesn't just process information. It actively distorts the lattice to create our personal reality. This is why the same world can look completely different depending on who is perceiving it. One person sees a problem, where another sees an opportunity. One hears noise, where another hears music. The lattice itself remains the same, but the way our brain interacts with it changes everything. In some ways, our minds act as filters. They take the overwhelming, infinite information contained in the lattice and reduce it into something manageable, something we can grasp with our senses and thoughts. This filtering creates the illusion of separation. Instead of perceiving the lattice in its entirety, we see bits and pieces. We think of ourselves as separate from others, from nature, and from the universe. But at its core, this separation is an illusion. When we strip away the filters, When we let go of our personal history, our beliefs, and our attachments, what's left is the undistorted lattice. Pure unity, pure coherence. To better understand how the lattice creates the world we see, consider a hologram. A hologram is not like a regular picture. If you tear a photograph, you lose parts of the image. But if you cut a hologram into smaller pieces, each piece still contains the entire image. The lattice behaves the same way. Every tiny part holds a whole. This concept has been echoed in ancient wisdom traditions and modern quantum physics alike. The interconnectedness of all things is not just a metaphor. It's the fundamental nature of reality. When we look at the world through this lens, everything becomes alive with meaning. The air you breathe, the space between your fingers, even the silence you hear, all of it is part of the lattice. It is vibrating, shifting, and holding the potential for infinite creation. It is as if the universe itself is a giant web, and you are not just caught in it, you are it. This is where the true power of the lattice lies. It is not passive or indifferent. It is responsive. It can be influenced, shaped, and transformed. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your intentions are not just abstract ideas floating around. They create ripples in the lattice. They matter. The more coherent and focused your mind, the greater your ability to affect the structure. In a state of confusion or fear, your ripples are chaotic and small. But in a state of clarity, unity, and love, your ripples become powerful waves that can harmonize with the lattice and shape reality in extraordinary ways. This interconnectedness doesn't mean that life is predetermined or rigid. On the contrary, the lattice is flexible and infinitely adaptable. It holds within it the potential for all realities, both seen and unseen. When we act, think, or feel, we activate certain possibilities while leaving others dormant. This is why consciousness is so central to understanding the lattice. Without an observer, without a participant, the lattice remains a field of infinite potential. It is through interaction, through awareness, that reality is born. To grasp this fully, imagine standing in a field of pure, untouched snow. The snow represents the lattice in its undistorted state, perfect, infinite, and pristine. As you move, you leave tracks in the snow. Those tracks are like the distortions created by your consciousness. They are temporary but meaningful. Over time, others may follow your tracks, creating pathways and patterns in the field. This is how reality works. Every action, every thought, and every intention leaves its mark on the lattice. For many people, this idea may feel abstract or even overwhelming, but it doesn't need to be. The beauty of the lattice is that it is always present. It is in the space you occupy right now. It is in the silence between your thoughts and the stillness of your breath. You don't need special tools or knowledge to connect with it. Simply being aware, truly aware of the space around you is enough to start feeling its presence. The more we align ourselves with the lattice, through mindfulness, intention, and connection, the closer we come to experiencing its true nature. In moments of deep peace or love, when our minds are free of distractions, we glimpse the lattice in its undistorted form. These moments remind us that we are not separate, but part of something vast, alive, and endlessly beautiful. This realization can transform how we see the world. It invites us to let go of the illusion of separateness and embrace the unity that has always been there. The lattice is not just a concept or a theory. It is the very fabric of reality. It holds us, connects us, and responds to us in ways we are only beginning to understand. It reminds us that we are creators, participants, and reflections of the same universal structure. In this way, the lattice becomes more than a scientific or philosophical idea. It becomes a doorway to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we live in. And as we step through that doorway, we begin to see that everything we need, everything we are, and everything we seek has always been right here, in the space between things. Consciousness and reality perception. To understand reality, we must start with a truth that is both unsettling and liberating. What you see, hear, touch, and feel is not reality itself. It is your version of it. The world you experience is not a direct, faithful image of what exists. It's a construction. Your brain is the architect, and consciousness is the energy that gives shape to this world. Every tree, every sound, every color you believe exists out there is, in fact, a translation created by your brain from the vast, infinite information of the lattice. The brain does not simply receive information. It actively transforms it. Picture the lattice, the structure of reality, as a sea of vibrations, endless waves of energy and potential that flow through everything. The brain works like a tuning device, filtering and organizing a small portion of this information into what you perceive as your everyday reality. It's a masterpiece of efficiency. Instead of overwhelming you with infinite possibilities, it reduces the world to something manageable, something you can interact with. This is where consciousness comes into play. Consciousness is not just awareness. It's the bridge that connects you to the lattice. Without consciousness, the vibrations of the lattice remain dormant, like an unplayed piano. But when your mind interacts with the lattice, you create meaning, form, and experience. You perceive a bird singing, the wind against your skin, or the laughter of someone you love. Yet these sensations are not out there waiting for you. They are the results of your brain decoding the lattice's energy, turning it into something you can recognize and feel. The level of consciousness you inhabit determines the version of reality you experience. Think of consciousness as a series of floors in a tall building. On the lower floors, you see a limited version of reality, full of separation and boundaries. Objects appear solid, isolated, and fixed. You think of yourself as a separate individual, disconnected from others and the universe around you. Most of us live on these floors, where the noise of everyday life drowns out the subtle truth of interconnectedness. But as you climb higher, something shifts. The walls start to dissolve, and you begin to perceive reality more as it is, fluid, interconnected, and alive. The boundaries between you and everything else blur. What once seemed solid becomes energy. What once felt separate now feels unified. At the highest level of consciousness, there is no you or me. There is only oneness. The observer and the observed become the same. You don't just look at the lattice, you become it. This journey through levels of consciousness is not merely a philosophical idea. It is something that can be felt and experienced. Consider moments of deep meditation, intense love, or awe. In those moments, time slows and the chatter of the mind fades. You feel connected to something greater than yourself, as if you are no longer a person observing the world, but a part of the world itself. These experiences reveal glimpses of higher consciousness, where the filters of perception are loosened and reality shines through with its true brilliance. The filters of the mind are the barriers that keep us on the lower floors. These filters are built from your personal history, beliefs, and expectations. Everything you have learned, your language, culture, fears, and desires, acts as a lens through which you see the world. This lens is useful, but it is also limiting. It narrows your vision, hiding the deeper truths of reality. When you look at a tree, you see only its appearance, a trunk, leaves, and branches. You miss the flow of energy that connects it to the soil, the air, and the sunlight. You miss the dance of the lattice that creates the tree and everything around it. To truly understand reality, you must learn to quiet these filters. You must let go of the idea that the world is fixed and unchanging. The truth is, reality is alive and always in motion, shaped by your consciousness and your perception. Your thoughts and emotions are not passive. They are active forces that ripple through the lattice, influencing the reality you experience. Imagine standing before a calm lake. If you toss a small stone into the water, ripples spread outward in perfect circles. Your mind works the same way. Every thought, every feeling sends out ripples that interact with the lattice. A peaceful, coherent mind creates calm, harmonious ripples. A chaotic, fearful mind creates disturbances and distortions. This is why your inner state matters. The reality you perceive reflects the quality of your consciousness. At its core, this idea is empowering. If your consciousness shapes reality, then you are not merely a passive observer of life. You are a creator. Your awareness, intentions, and emotions have the power to transform the world around you. This doesn't mean you can control everything that happens, but it does mean you can choose how you interact with the lattice. By elevating your consciousness through love, clarity, and awareness, you bring harmony to your reality. This concept has been explored in both science and spirituality for centuries. Modern quantum physics tells us that particles behave differently depending on whether they are observed. The mere act of observation influences the outcome, as if reality itself is waiting for consciousness to give it form. This mirrors what mystics and sages have said for thousands of years. The world is not separate from you. It responds to you, and you respond to it. But there is another layer to this relationship. Just as your consciousness shapes reality, reality shapes your consciousness. The lattice is not a static background. It is alive, vibrant, and interactive. It reflects back to you the state of your mind. If you look at the world through fear, you will see chaos and separation. If you look at it through love, you will see beauty and connection. The world is like a mirror, showing you the ripples you send into it. This feedback loop between consciousness and reality means that growth is always possible. By becoming more aware of your thoughts, emotions, and actions, you can begin to shift your experience of the world. You can choose to see beyond the surface and connect with the deeper truth of the lattice. This is not about denying the struggles and challenges of life, but about recognizing that even those challenges are part of a larger, interconnected whole. For many people, this idea can feel abstract or even mystical, but it is deeply practical. The more conscious you become, the more you realize that your perception is not fixed. You can change how you see the world, and in doing so, you can change your experience of it. This shift doesn't happen all at once. It is a process, like peeling back layers of an onion. Each layer brings you closer to the center, where the truth of unity awaits. There are moments when the filters fall away completely. In these moments, reality reveals itself as something far greater than we can imagine. People who have had near-death experiences, profound meditations, or moments of transcendence often describe the same thing: a sense of overwhelming love, unity, and peace. They see the lattice not as an abstract concept, but as a living presence that connects everything. These moments remind us that the boundaries we perceive between ourselves, others, and the world are illusions. In truth, there is no separation. There is only one vast, interconnected field of energy and consciousness. Your thoughts, emotions, and perceptions are part of this field, constantly interacting with it and shaping it. To live with this understanding is to live with greater awareness and responsibility. You realize that your consciousness is not small or insignificant. It is part of the same force that creates the stars, the oceans, and the mountains. It is part of the lattice itself, and it has the power to shape reality in profound ways. This is why elevating consciousness is so important. It is not just about personal growth. It is about aligning yourself with the deeper truth of reality. As you quiet the filters of your mind and connect with the lattice, you begin to experience life differently. You see beauty where you once saw nothing. You feel connected where you once felt alone. You realize that you are not just a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. The journey to higher consciousness is not a distant goal. It begins here and now, in the space around you and within you. Every moment is an opportunity to perceive reality more clearly, to align with the lattice, and to shape your world with love and awareness. The more you practice this, the more you will realize that reality is not something that happens to you. It is something you create. When you wake up to this truth, the world becomes a different place. You see the lattice everywhere, in the sunlight streaming through the trees, in the rhythm of your breath, and in the silence between sounds. You understand that consciousness and reality are not two separate things. They are one and the same, dancing together in a timeless flow of creation and experience. This is the gift of consciousness, the power to perceive, create, and transform. It reminds us that we are not separate from reality, but an essential part of it. And as we embrace this truth, we come closer to experiencing the unity, beauty, and infinite potential of the lattice itself. The concept of synergy. At the heart of this entire understanding of reality lies a powerful idea: synergy, a word born from the combination of synthesis and energy. Synergy describes the level of order, coherence, and connection in any part of the universe. It is the invisible thread that weaves everything together, the organizing force that determines how harmonious or chaotic reality appears. In simple terms, synergy measures how much energy within the lattice converges into a unified and coherent whole. The more synergy there is, the more perfect the order. The less synergy, the more fragmented and distorted reality becomes. Imagine a symphony orchestra. When all the musicians play in harmony, following the same rhythm and melody, the result is breathtaking. The music flows effortlessly, filling the room with beauty and power. This is high synergy, coherence, harmony, and convergence working as one. But what happens if just a few musicians play out of tune or lose track of the beat? The result is jarring and chaotic. The music becomes disorganized and its beauty fades. This is what happens when synergy is low. Reality itself becomes fragmented, disordered, and noisy. The lattice, as the fundamental structure of the universe, exists in both extremes. There are regions of perfect synergy, zones of ultimate coherence and order where energy flows freely, uninterrupted by distortions. In these places, the lattice is pure, unified, and infinite. It is so perfect that nothing can be perceived as separate. There are no objects, no boundaries, and no forces of resistance. It is like looking at a perfectly still lake that reflects the entire sky without the slightest ripple. This state of high synergy represents the deepest truth of existence. Everything is one, flowing in perfect unity. But the lattice can also be distorted. When its energy becomes disrupted by thought, matter, or emotion, it creates zones of lower synergy. These distortions give rise to the physical world as we know it. Objects appear separate from each other. Forces like gravity emerge, and time becomes a measurable experience. The solidity of a mountain, the weight of a rock, or the sound of your voice are all examples of energy becoming less coherent, more fragmented. These are the ripples in the water, the waves of dissonance breaking through the perfect harmony of the lattice. Understanding this balance between high and low synergy changes everything. It reveals that what we perceive as reality is not fixed or absolute. It is simply a spectrum of synergy, a dance between order and disorder, harmony and chaos. High synergy exists when the lattice is closer to its original, undisturbed state. Low synergy occurs when the lattice is distorted into forms, objects, and experiences. What's truly fascinating is that our consciousness plays a direct role in this process. Thoughts, emotions, and intentions are not abstract. They are energy, and this energy interacts with the lattice, either increasing or decreasing its synergy. A focused, calm mind radiates coherence, creating ripples of harmony in the lattice. It's like throwing a perfectly round stone into a still pond. The ripples are smooth and organized. But a mind filled with fear, confusion, or negativity creates chaotic ripples, distortions that lower the lattice's synergy. This is why states of mind matter so much. A person experiencing love, peace, or joy resonates with higher synergy. Their energy aligns more closely with the undistorted lattice, and as a result, they perceive reality as more beautiful, connected, and whole. On the other hand, a person trapped in anger, resentment, or anxiety is interacting with the lattice in a way that lowers synergy. The world appears more fragmented, disjointed, and heavy because their energy disrupts the coherence around them. It's not hard to see how this applies to everyday life. Have you ever entered a room where two people just had an argument? Even if they don't say a word, you can feel the tension in the air. Their emotions have rippled through the lattice, lowering its synergy and creating a subtle sense of disharmony. Conversely, when you are around someone radiating kindness, calmness, or joy, the atmosphere feels light and peaceful. That's because their energy is increasing the synergy around them, bringing order and harmony to the space. This same principle applies on a much larger scale. Nature itself is a masterful expression of high synergy. Think of a dense forest or a coral reef. Everything flows in perfect balance. Plants grow, animals thrive, and the ecosystem works as a unified whole. There is no waste, no chaos, just the harmony of life unfolding in perfect rhythm. That's synergy in action. But when humans disrupt this balance, cutting down trees, polluting the ocean, or destroying habitats, the synergy drops. Chaos replaces order, and the delicate harmony begins to break apart. Even within our bodies, synergy plays a crucial role. A healthy body is one where energy flows freely and all systems, cells, tissues, and organs work together in perfect balance. This is high synergy, coherence within the physical form. But when stress, toxins, or illness enter the picture, the body's synergy drops. The harmony breaks and imbalances appear. Disease, then, can be seen as a manifestation of low synergy, a reflection of energy that has become disorganized or disrupted. What this reveals is that synergy is not just a concept. It is a force that shapes everything we experience. It is present in the way we think, feel, and live. It determines the quality of our relationships, the state of our health, and the harmony of the world around us. When we align ourselves with higher synergy, we naturally experience more peace, clarity, and connection. Life flows more effortlessly because we are in tune with the lattice's natural order. Elevating synergy begins with awareness. By quieting the mind, calming the emotions, and focusing our attention, we create a ripple effect of coherence that extends beyond ourselves. This is why practices like meditation, mindfulness, and acts of kindness are so transformative. They are not just tools for personal well-being. They are ways of increasing the synergy of the lattice. The harmony you create within yourself radiates outward, influencing everything you touch. At its highest state, synergy reveals the ultimate truth, that everything is connected and separation is an illusion. In moments of profound stillness, whether through meditation, deep love, or a sudden flash of insight, we can glimpse this truth. The boundaries dissolve, and we experience ourselves not as isolated beings, but as part of a vast, unified whole. This is the essence of high synergy, the return to the lattice in its purest, undistorted form. The idea of synergy also explains why certain places, people, or experiences feel more alive than others. Sacred spaces, like ancient temples, pristine mountains, or quiet forests, often radiate a palpable sense of peace and energy. These places have higher synergy, untouched by the distortions of human chaos. Similarly, people who live in alignment with higher consciousness seem to carry an energy that uplifts those around them. Their presence alone can calm a room, heal a wound, or inspire greatness. This is the beauty of synergy. It reminds us that we are both part of the problem and part of the solution. Our energy can lower the synergy of the lattice, creating disharmony and disconnection, but it can also elevate it, bringing more order, coherence, and love into the world. By choosing to live with awareness, intention, and clarity, we become agents of harmony. In the end, synergy is not just a measure of the universe's order. It is a reflection of our own inner state. When we live in chaos, we experience the world as chaotic. But when we align with higher synergy, we open ourselves to the deeper truth of existence, that everything is connected and we are part of something infinite, alive, and beautiful. This realization transforms how we see the world. It is no longer a collection of separate objects, but a living, breathing field of energy. Every thought, every action, and every intention matters because it ripples through the lattice, shaping the synergy of reality itself. By elevating our own energy through love, peace, and unity, we contribute to the harmony of the whole. In this way, synergy becomes a guide. It shows us the path back to ourselves, back to the undistorted lattice where everything flows as one. It is the force that holds the universe together, the music behind the chaos, and the silent order that reveals the interconnected beauty of all things. And the more we understand it, the more we realize that we are not separate from this harmony. We are part of it, and it is part of us. The brain as a model of the lattice. The human brain is, without a doubt, one of the most extraordinary creations of the universe. For millions of years, nature perfected it, shaping this organ into a structure capable of decoding the very fabric of reality. But the brain is not just an organ sitting inside your skull. It is a mirror of the lattice itself. It mimics the same organization, coherence, and potential that exist in the infinite field of energy around us. By understanding the brain, we understand the lattice. And by understanding the lattice, we gain insights into the brain's deepest mysteries. Imagine for a moment that the brain is like an intricate network of highways. Each road connects to others, forming pathways that allow information to flow. Billions of neurons communicate at lightning speed, firing signals that give rise to every thought, sensation, and movement. But this is only the surface. Beneath this activity lies something far greater: the brain's ability to align with the lattice and mirror its structure. Just as the lattice holds all the information of the universe in every point, the brain organizes and integrates information from the external world, creating a model of reality. From a functional perspective, the brain operates in two key ways. It decodes and it distorts. When it decodes, it transforms the energy of the lattice into something recognizable: an image, a sound, a thought. This decoding allows you to perceive the world: the blue of the sky, the laughter of a child, or the warmth of the sun. But the brain also distorts reality. By filtering and limiting the energy it receives, it creates an experience that feels separate and solid, a version of the world tailored to your level of awareness. The beauty of this process is in its efficiency. The brain does not try to capture everything. It can't. The lattice holds infinite information, vibrating in frequencies far beyond what our senses can detect. Instead, the brain selects only what it needs, like a radio tuning into a specific station. It takes the overwhelming complexity of the lattice and simplifies it into a coherent, manageable reality. This act of simplification is both necessary and limiting. It allows us to live, work, and think, but it also keeps us from perceiving the deeper unity behind everything. At its core, the brain mimics the lattice's incredible ability to converge information. Think of a single point in the lattice. It contains all the information of the universe, perfectly concentrated and connected. The brain does something similar. Every neuron, every circuit is part of a larger network, working together to organize and integrate massive amounts of information. The more complex this integration, the greater the brain's ability to create higher levels of perception, thought, and awareness. This is why the brain is often described as the most complex system in the known universe. With over 80 billion neurons and trillions of connections, it can perform operations that rival the vastness of the cosmos. Each neuron acts like a tiny piece of the lattice, receiving, processing, and transmitting energy. But the brain's true genius lies not in its individual neurons, but in the way it connects them. Just as the lattice's power comes from its perfect interconnection, the brain's power comes from its networks, its ability to weave everything together into a unified experience. What makes this even more fascinating is that the brain does not just process information passively. It interacts with the lattice directly. Every thought you have, every feeling you experience, sends ripples through this field of energy. The brain, through its activity, creates its own distortions in the lattice. These distortions are not separate from you. They are you. Your emotions, memories, and perceptions are patterns of energy, influencing both your brain and the world around you. Consider what happens when you think of a happy memory. Your brain activates a complex network of neurons, recreating the sights, sounds, and emotions of that moment. But at the same time, this act sends ripples of coherence into the lattice. Your positive energy increases the harmony around you, shaping the very fabric of reality. The same happens when you feel stress or sadness. The brain's activity creates ripples that lower the lattice's synergy, introducing disharmony. This direct interaction between the brain and the lattice reveals a powerful truth. The brain is not separate from the universe. It is part of the same structure, governed by the same principles. When you look at the stars, your brain is decoding patterns of light that originated millions of years ago. But those same patterns are mirrored within you. The universe is not just something out there. It is reflected inside you in the activity of your brain. The brain's ability to mirror the lattice can also be seen in its levels of organization. At the simplest level, there is raw sensory input, the signals that come from your eyes, ears, and skin. These signals are like fragments of the lattice, pieces of energy waiting to be decoded. As they move deeper into the brain, they are organized, integrated, and transformed into meaningful experiences. This process of convergence mirrors the way the lattice organizes its infinite energy into coherent forms. At the highest levels of brain function, something extraordinary happens. Consciousness emerges. Consciousness is not just the ability to think or be aware. It is the brain's alignment with the deeper structure of the lattice. When you reach states of deep focus, meditation, or love, your brain begins to resonate with higher synergy. Its activity becomes more coherent, more unified, and more aligned with the lattice's natural harmony. In these moments, the boundaries between you and the world begin to dissolve. You no longer feel separate. You feel connected, as if you are part of something greater. The human brain is also a remarkable example of the lattice's plasticity. Just as the lattice can distort itself into infinite forms, the brain can adapt and change in response to experience. This is known as neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize its networks, create new connections, and reshape itself. Every thought, every action, and every emotion leaves an imprint on the brain, just as it creates ripples in the lattice. When you learn something new, the brain changes. When you heal from a painful experience, it changes again. This flexibility mirrors the lattice's infinite potential to transform. The parallels between the brain and the lattice go even deeper when we consider their dual nature. Just as the lattice exists in both order and disorder, high synergy and low synergy, the brain functions across a spectrum of coherence. In states of high coherence, the brain's activity becomes synchronized and unified. These are the moments of clarity, creativity, and peace. In states of low coherence, the brain's activity becomes fragmented and chaotic. These are the moments of confusion, stress, and disconnection. This dual nature is what makes the brain both a challenge and a gift. It can trap us in distorted realities, or it can help us align with the deeper truth of the lattice. When the brain operates in harmony, it becomes a perfect reflection of the universe's order, a tool for experiencing unity, beauty, and love. But when it falls into chaos, it distorts our perception, making the world feel fragmented and disconnected. The good news is that we have the power to influence this process. Through mindfulness, meditation, and focused intention, we can train the brain to resonate with higher levels of coherence. By calming the mind and quieting the noise of everyday thoughts, we allow the brain to align more closely with the natural order of the lattice. In this state, we experience life as it truly is, alive, interconnected, and infinite. The brain's role as a model of the lattice also offers insight into our potential as human beings. If the brain mirrors the structure of the universe, then its possibilities are limitless. Just as the lattice can manifest infinite forms, the brain has the capacity for infinite creativity, intelligence, and awareness. Most of us only use a fraction of this potential, limited by our beliefs, habits, and conditioning. But when we break free from these limits, when we open ourselves to higher levels of consciousness, the brain becomes a gateway to the infinite. This is why the brain is so much more than an organ. It is a bridge between the physical and the infinite, a model of the universe itself. It holds within it the same principles that govern the stars, the galaxies, and the lattice that connects everything. By understanding and aligning with these principles, we can unlock new levels of awareness, harmony, and potential. In the end, the brain is not separate from the world around us. It is part of the lattice, a reflection of the universe's beauty and complexity. When we quiet our minds and align with higher synergy, we begin to see this connection clearly. The boundaries fade, and we realize that the same energy flowing through the stars flows through us. The same order that shapes the galaxies shapes our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. This realization is both humbling and empowering. It reminds us that we are not small or insignificant. We are mirrors of the universe, capable of creating, transforming, and experiencing its infinite beauty. The brain, with all its complexity and potential, is the key to this understanding, a living model of the lattice that holds the truth of who we are and what we can become. The interaction between the brain and the lattice. The brain is not just a machine for thought or survival. It is something far more profound. It is both a receiver and a generator of reality. Its connection to the lattice is intimate and constant, though most of the time we remain unaware of it. Think of the brain as an antenna, tuned to the frequencies of the lattice, picking up energy, organizing it, and turning it into what we perceive as the world around us. But here's the fascinating part. The brain doesn't simply receive the energy of the lattice, it also sends energy back. It's a two-way relationship, a continuous exchange of influence between you and the vast field that underlies all of existence. Imagine standing by the edge of a still pond. When you throw a pebble into the water, ripples spread out in perfect circles. This is exactly how your brain interacts with the lattice. Every thought, every emotion, and every intention is like a pebble, creating ripples in the field of energy. Some ripples are small and fade quickly, like fleeting thoughts. Others are strong and far-reaching, especially when they carry deep emotions or focused intentions. These ripples don't just vanish. They interact with the lattice and influence the reality around you. This idea shifts the way we see ourselves and the world. Most people believe reality is something that happens to them, a fixed, external stage on which life plays out. But this is an illusion. Reality is interactive. The lattice is not a passive backdrop. It responds to the energy we project into it. Your brain, with its neural activity and conscious focus, is constantly shaping your experience of reality. The world you see is not just out there. It is a reflection of what is happening within you. To grasp this, let's go deeper into the concept of the brain as both a receiver and a generator. As a receiver, the brain decodes the energy of the lattice into a coherent experience. The vibrations, frequencies, and patterns that flow through the field are translated into sounds, sights, textures, and emotions. A sunset, for example, is not just a sunset. The lattice provides the raw energy, but your brain transforms that energy into an experience of warmth, beauty, and color. In this way, your mind doesn't just observe reality. It participates in creating it. But the brain is not passive in this process. It also generates its own energy, thoughts, emotions, intentions that flow back into the lattice. This is where things get really interesting, because the energy you project interacts with the lattice, shaping the patterns of your reality. Think of it like sculpting clay. The lattice is the clay itself, an infinite potential waiting to be shaped. Your mind is the sculptor, pressing into the clay with your thoughts, feelings, and focus. The result is the life you experience, the relationships you form, the situations you attract, and the way the world feels around you. This interaction between the brain and the lattice explains why your state of mind has such a powerful influence on your life. A peaceful mind radiates energy that brings harmony and clarity into the lattice. The world feels lighter, brighter, and more connected. In contrast, a mind filled with stress or negativity creates chaotic ripples. Reality begins to feel fragmented, heavy, and full of resistance. It's not that the external world has changed. It's that the energy you are projecting has altered how the lattice responds to you. This relationship works both ways. Just as your brain influences the lattice influences your brain. It's a constant dialogue. The patterns and energy flowing through the field are not random. They carry information. Sometimes this information is subtle, a feeling of intuition, a sudden idea, or a deep sense of connection. Other times, It comes as experiences or synchronicities that feel almost magical. Have you ever thought of someone, only for them to call you moments later? Or had a dream that revealed something important about your waking life? These moments are not coincidences. They are evidence of the lattice responding to the energy you send into it. The way your brain interacts with the lattice depends largely on its level of coherence. A coherent brain, one that is calm, focused, and unified, aligns more easily with the natural harmony of the field. Its energy ripples outward smoothly, creating a reality that feels balanced and connected. In contrast, a chaotic brain, one filled with scattered thoughts, distractions, and emotional turbulence, generates dissonance. This dissonance ripples into the lattice, distorting your perception of reality and creating experiences that feel out of sync. Think about the moments in your life when everything seemed to flow effortlessly. You were calm, clear, and in tune with yourself. The people you needed appeared at the right time, opportunities unfolded naturally, and life felt almost magical. This is what happens when your brain's energy resonates with the lattice's natural order. You are not forcing reality to work for you, you are aligning with it. Your thoughts and emotions become coherent, and the lattice responds with harmony. The opposite happens when your mind is in turmoil. Stress, fear, and confusion disrupt the brain's coherence. The ripples you send into the lattice become jagged and chaotic, and the reality you experience reflects that. Situations become more challenging. Communication breaks down, and you feel disconnected from yourself and others. It's not because the world is against you. It's because the energy you are projecting is out of alignment with the lattice's natural flow. This understanding gives us an incredible amount of power. If we can quiet the chaos in our minds, we can influence the way reality unfolds. Practices like meditation, mindfulness, and focus intention are tools that help us achieve this coherence. When the brain is calm and clear, it aligns with the deeper harmony of the lattice, allowing us to shape reality with greater ease and clarity. It's not about controlling the world. It's about participating in its creation with awareness and intention. The interaction between the brain and the lattice also sheds light on the power of collective consciousness. If one brain can influence reality, imagine what happens when many brains align their energy toward the same goal. History is full of examples of this. Movements for peace, justice, or change often begin with a shared vision, a collective intention that ripples through the lattice, influencing the world in profound ways. The energy of a single individual can create powerful ripples, but when many minds come together in coherence, their impact multiplies. At its core, this relationship between the brain and the lattice is a reminder that we are not separate from the world around us. The thoughts we think, the emotions we feel, and the intentions we hold are not confined to our bodies. They extend into the field of energy, shaping reality in ways both seen and unseen. This is why self-awareness is so important. By becoming more conscious of the energy we project, we can begin to create a reality that reflects harmony, connection, and beauty. But this is not just a personal journey. The more we align our brains with the natural order of the lattice, the more we contribute to the harmony of the world as a whole. Each of us is like a small stone thrown into the vast pond of existence. The ripples we create may seem small, but they extend far beyond what we can see. A kind word, a loving thought, or a moment of gratitude sends ripples of coherence into the lattice, touching everything around us. The brain's interaction with the lattice reveals a profound truth. We are not passive observers of life. We are participants. Every moment, with every thought and feeling, we are shaping the reality we experience. This understanding is both humbling and empowering. It reminds us that we are connected to something far greater than ourselves, and it gives us the tools to align with that connection. When we quiet the noise of our minds and tune into the deeper flow of the lattice, something beautiful happens. We begin to see life as it truly is, alive, interconnected, and full of potential. The boundaries between ourselves and the world dissolve, and we realize that we are not separate from the energy that creates stars, rivers, and forests. That same energy flows through us, shaping our thoughts, our bodies, and our experiences. In this way, the brain becomes a bridge. It connects the seen and the unseen, the physical and the infinite. It allows us to interact with the lattice not just as observers, but as creators. By bringing awareness to this interaction, we reclaim our role as co-creators of reality. We stop seeing life as something that happens to us and start recognizing it as something we help shape. This is the gift of understanding the brain's relationship with the lattice. It transforms the way we see ourselves, others, and the world. It reminds us that we are not separate from the universe, but part of its endless flow. Every thought, every emotion, and every intention matters because it ripples into the field of energy, shaping the fabric of reality itself. The more we align our minds with the coherence of the lattice, the closer we come to experiencing life as it truly is, beautiful, connected, and full of infinite possibilities. It is a reminder that we are both the creators and the creation, forever connected to the field that holds us, shapes us, and responds to us. And in this connection lies the greatest truth of all. We are never alone, and we are always part of something far greater than ourselves.